Hey guys, welcome back to the Pulling Curls podcast. Today on episode 167, we are talking about the most important part of labor. No, it's not having the baby come out. It's healthcare communication. So important. Let's untangle it. Hi, I'm Hillary Erickson, the curly head behind the Pulling Curls podcast, Pregnancy and Parenting Untangled. There's no right answer for every family, but on this show, we hope to give you some ideas to make life simpler at your house. Life's tangled, just like my hair. Just communicating to you that our podcast grows when you guys subscribe and review the podcast, especially on Apple Podcasts, you Apple users. So we love it when you guys do that. Super excited for today's guest. She is a registered nurse in labor and delivery, but she's actually in school to become a certified nurse midwife and a women's health nurse practitioner. So she is in school to deliver the babies. I want to introduce today's guest, Samantha Ghabra. Do you feel prepared for your delivery? In just 3 short hours, you can be prepared for the confident, collaborative delivery you want. You'll know what to expect and how to talk with your healthcare team, and there are no boring lessons in this class. I'll use humor, stories from my 20 years in the delivery room to engage both of you. I love how Alyssa told me that she found herself laughing at things that used to sound scary. Most of all, you guys are going to be on the same page from bump to bassinet. Join the online prenatal class for couples today. You can save 15% with coupon code UNTANGLED. You can find the link in the show notes. Hey, Samantha, welcome to the Pulling Curls podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, Samantha is in midwifery school. She's going the whole 9 yards.
Yes, I am.
Have you always wanted to be a midwife?
I have. My mom is a retired midwife nurse practitioner, so you can imagine the dinner table conversations growing up as a kid. And yeah, that was my inspiration.
My boys wouldn't want to imagine that. They had just plenty with a labor and delivery nurse mom.
I'm sure they didn't.
So exciting. Okay, so today we are talking about healthcare communication. How long have you been a labor nurse?
I've been a labor nurse for about 2.5 years and a nurse total for 5 years.
Oh, what did you do before labor?
I did corrections. I worked in a jail.
No communication there.
Right.
That is a leap. Although I did hospice and everyone's like, oh, that's so different. I was like, actually, they're very similar.
Right. I mean, you get used to talking to people and kind of interacting with all walks of life. So it's a very interesting experience.
Yeah. Both places for me, it was when is this going to happen? When are they going to die?
Right.
When is the baby going to be born? Yeah. Wanted a crystal ball. It's fine. Okay, so I have 3 tips for better communication. Hopefully Samantha has some, and we're just going to chitty chat about them because guys, just like in marriage, just like in the workplace, communication is key. And I think a lot of times everyone thinks, well, my healthcare team should be communicating all these things to me. But the problem is some people want a lot of communication and some people absolutely do not. And we don't know which you are, you know?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. Sometimes, especially like with the IV, a lot of people I'm like, do you want me to talk you through this or do you want to be completely blind? And I would say 50-50 are like, I don't want to hear one word about what is going on over there. And the other one's like, just let me know before you poke or whatever, you know, everybody's different.
Everyone is different. And I feel like I tend to move on the side of too much information because I love educating patients. But yeah, not everyone wants that level of detail.
Yeah. And so that's my first tip is that everyone is different. We are seeing such a huge variety of people, especially in the hospital, different cultures, different nationalities, different ages. Everybody's so different because you think whatever you want is very normal, right?
Yes.
Because I see a lot of people on TikTok who are like, well, of course they would talk me through the entire exam. But I got to tell you, there's a lot of girls who want to know absolutely nothing before.
Like, get
They're
it
like,
done
just
and
get it done.
Move on. Yes.
Yeah. And so I'm like, well, but we don't know that if you don't tell it. So I tend to go like middle of the road until you're like, just get it done.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I know I should be better about saying, hey, do you want to know all the information or are you like, I don't care, just do your job.
Yeah.
I really should get better about asking about that because I probably give too much information, but I like people to know what they're getting into.
Yeah. And I'm hopeful that they would tell me if they're like, shut up, Hillary.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell us everything. Like, I don't know that I've ever had a patient who overcommunicated at least their needs or what they wanted from me. I have had some who overcommunicated in general, probably.
Yeah, most of the time I see the bigger communication coming in from like the birth plan has like all their, wants. And I like to say instead of birth plans, we should have birth preferences because things can change on a dime, and being open to that change, I think makes for a much better birth experience. But yeah, I don't think most people come in and say, this is how I like to communicate, which would be helpful.
Right. And that's never on the birth plan.
No.
They never say on there, I want to hear when you opened the KY jelly. I want to know everything about that exam.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a good one. And I think a lot of times people hand us the birth plan expecting like, this is going to communicate for me. And it doesn't, because I don't even know when you made this birth plan. I don't know if you were just on the bump at 6 months pregnant, printed it out, and then, and handed it to me when you went to have the baby. I don't know if you've researched any of this. A lot of times I'll look at it and be like, okay, so no vitamin K. Is there a reason? Like, do you want to talk about that at all? And they're like, oh, I just heard it was super bad.
Exactly. There's so much misinformation on social media and stuff. And I really like to, like, if someone's refusing stuff, I'm very much like, okay, you say you don't want an IV. Let's sit down and talk about it. What are your fears? Where are you coming from? Oh, I don't like needles. Okay, well, there's no needle still in the arm. And this is why I think and why I like to have IV access. And then just make it conversation versus like, you're refusing. Okay, hands off. I'm done.
Right. I think a lot of people then think we are pressuring them into it, when in reality, it is so much our obligation to tell you the risks, I guess, and the benefits. Although I guess if you made the choice that you don't want an IV, you're obvious to the benefits of that you don't have to get poked and an IV is not in your arm.
Right.
But it's important for us to tell you what those risks are. That's what you're paying us for. We're not just your friend.
Correct.
Yeah.
And everyone should be able, every provider should be able to come into a room, whether it's the nurse, the doctor, whoever, and say, this is what we would like to do. This is why we want to do it. And if you don't do it, these are some alternatives for you. And if they're not telling you those things, ask them.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what are the benefits of this? What happens if I don't do anything?
Yeah.
And then the doctor should be able to say, okay, well, if you don't do anything, this might happen.
Yeah.
And then you're aware.
Yeah. And you can ask that on absolutely anything. I had a nurse on here who was like, we should give informed consent for the blood pressure. And I was like, okay, I don't.
That's a little much for me, but
Especially every 15 minutes. I am now going to take your blood pressure. It is important because.
This is why I think we should do this. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I don't go that far.
Me neither.
Yeah. I mean, there are going to be times, especially if we're super busy, that our communication may be tailored just to what you're asking for, right?
Correct. And I feel like we, coming from the medical side, we know everything. We know we see labor multiple times a day, right? And for the patient, this is their one baby that they're having. And we often don't think that they don't know everything like we know everything. So we kind of gloss over things. And I think it's important from a provider's perspective to remember that the patient doesn't know everything. They don't know what we're thinking. They don't know all the outcomes that could happen or the plan of care that is pretty much standard for most people. So it seems like we're doing a lot of crazy things, even though to us it seems totally normal.
Right. Yeah. And so it's up to you to be like, hey, what's up with this? Or I would love to know anything about what you're doing, term it that way. I'm one of those people that just loves information.
Yes.
Or I'm the one who wants to know absolutely nothing.
Correct.
I want to come out of this not even having a clue what went on.
Yeah. And like, if some stuff goes down and it's a bit crazy and no one explained it anything to you, as a nurse, I would be looking at my patient and be like, they seem like they might need to go over things. And I'd go up to the doctor and say, hey doc, patient really seems like they might need a debrief about what happened. Can you go talk to them? Because sometimes you just need someone to throw your thoughts at and tell you what happened and that it was not your fault.
Right. Yeah. And I think so much birth trauma can be alleviated and I started doing this a lot more postpartum, after they're cleaned up and they've had a moment to breathe. Hey, how was birth? Do you have any questions? Because I'm your labor nurse or your labor nurse is still here. And now's the time to get those questions answered. Because even your doctor 6 weeks later, unless it was like crazy town, is not going to.
No,
they're going to be like,
remember.
I don't know why you got an episiotomy. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's super important. Or like if you have to resuscitate a baby or something. So I had a shoulder dystocia once and the dad then was at the warmer and I was kind of going over, okay, dad, this is what happened. This is what we had to do. And I told the patient, we were really pressing on your stomach and I'm sorry, but we were trying to get the shoulder unstuck. So just kind of go over things and make sure that it makes sense to them.
Yeah. And so if you have any lingering questions, don't hesitate.
No, please don't.
Don't hesitate, because then you're going to go home in your little postpartum mind, which I've had, And then you're going to like ruminate over these things and be like,
Yes.
what did I do wrong? Should I have gotten induced? What could I have done? Did I not push good enough?
Right.
And most often it's just like, that's
It's
just
that
how it happened.
It's just how it happens. And I always tell parents, there's no stupid questions. Like, ask them, because if we don't know what your knowledge base is, I can't teach you what you need to know. And I don't know where you're coming from. So ask all the questions. I don't care if you ask me 100 questions or 2 questions, just ask them.
Yeah. And I think people don't know that nurses love to answer questions. Like, it's my favorite because we have so many
favorite
stupid menial tasks, like so many boxes we have to click, and they're the same on every patient, right?
Yes, correct.
Do you
so
have
many boxes?
Do you have a history of liver cancer? No.
On everyone, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, ask all the questions.
We can easily, almost 80% of the time, I can answer questions while I am doing other tasks. So ask away. We love it. Yeah. Okay, my second tip, although we are giving so many good tips during this, is to be kind. I see a lot of people on TikTok, especially, just like, no, you're just going to walk in that room and say, no, I don't want an IV, right?
Yes. It's like, we're all on the same team. I was just talking with a couple of my new coworkers because we're at a birth center and we have some midwife patients. And sometimes, I'm not stereotyping, but sometimes there is a stereotype of patients of midwives who like want all the crunchy things. And I'm all about it. Like, I call myself scrunchy. I want to do the sciencey, but also the crunchy stuff.
I love that.
And, and sometimes with doulas and stuff, they're amazing and they're wonderful for labor coping and I love them. But we're all on the same team. I think sometimes we get defensive, and we have to remember that we're on the patient side, all of us, the doula, the doctor, the nurse, the patient, we're all together, instead of making it about like a fight of who is right.
Yeah, this is not a fight.
No.
We will have a fight at the nurses station, but that's among the nurses.
True. Very true.
girl fight.
Yes.
I mean, it just comes from a place that the kinder you can be. It's not a super lucrative job. These people are doing a lot for you. They likely are holding their bladder. They may not have eaten. It is not a cushy job.
No.
And so being kind to them, being respectful with your communication, just like anywhere else, is so important. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. You catch, more flies with honey than vinegar or something like that?
Yes, 100%. Because you don't want to make them angry, right?
Right.
Would you treat your waitress like that? Maybe they would. I don't know.
Maybe.
Probably not.
I mean, but it's like you treat someone poorly, and like I've been on the receiving end of like a not so nice patients and not so nice patient's family, and it puts not a great taste in your mouth. So, being kind to everyone involved is important. And same goes from the nursing side. Like,
I agree.
I was telling my coworkers, sometimes the patients can kind of feel that energy that you're putting out. If you go in thinking that, oh, they're going to be like this difficult patient, and like people can sense that kind of energy, I feel like.
Yes, I agree. And, you might not want to see us, but if you're going in the room and you're like ripping my head off every time I go in that room, I'm just like, I do not want to be here.
Yeah. Be like, oh, okay, I'll get you whatever you want. Please stop using the hallway.
Yeah. Let's just be nice to each other. I love the idea that we're not in a fight here. Like,
I agree.
We're here to communicate. You don't need to be rude. I know a lot of people are like, well, they're just going to push me into something I don't want. And I mean, I have seen that happen, usually by doctors. But rarely is the nurse going to push you into something you don't want.
Correct. Very rarely. And I had a patient once who was like, well, the birthing educator told me that, I don't have to get an epidural, but that we'll just come in, the nurses, and do whatever we want. And it's like, first of all, I really don't care what you want to do as in terms of your care. Like, that's your choice. But like, it doesn't have to be what I want. It's about what you want. And I'm going to help you have that. But,
be nice.
You know how it is.
Be nice. And nurses need to be nice too. I'm not saying nurses are out of this game.
No.
All right. So the other thing that I think about communication is you can almost always ask for more time. So this is more when your doctor, because if we're like, okay, it's time to start the IV. Yes, you have more time. But a lot of times the doctors will be like, well, I think we should have a C-section. And I'm going to say I have seen them kind of like put the pressure on, like we're almost at the used car lot where they're selling, we're going to sell this car.
Right.
You can always say, we would like to think about it. Or you can say, do we have time to discuss it? Right?
Yes. Is there time to have a moment to talk with my partner, talk with my support person, whoever's with you? 100%.
Yeah. Because even that 2 to 3 minutes, and then you can just put your call light on when you're done. It's going to give you, when you go home, you're going to have been like, okay, we thought through that decision. We didn't get pressured into it. We had some input in this decision.
Right. We had some control over it. And just say, do we have a moment to discuss? And there are very few times when there isn't that moment, but those are not everyday occurrences.
No.
So most of the time there is plenty of time or at least a little bit of time, a couple of minutes if you need it, to discuss things and at least feel like you had some control and some input in your care, which I think is what lowers birth trauma for a lot of people.
I totally agree. One of my friends gave me a good tip that if you feel like the doctor's kind of pressuring you, you can be like, I need to go to the restroom. Can you help me get in there, Hillary? Right?
Yes.
Your doctor's not going to come in that restroom with you, but the nurse will.
They are not.
So at that point, you can even ask the nurse, what do you think?
Yes. Although technically we're not supposed to, but I will do if I was you, if this was the situation that I were in, this is kind of what I would do.
Yeah. And seasoned nurses kind of go psychologists on you. What are you feeling?
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Because we already have our own opinion where we think,
correct.
You could wait. We could see what's going to go on. We can kind of steer you through that psychological of, well, it sounds like you're a little bit anxious about that. Do you want to listen to that voice, or do you feel like it would be better to go back to the OR?
Right. 100%. And always, I tell my patients, you can say no to things. You can change your mind if you said yes and now you change your mind. I think that goes hand in hand with asking for time, is being able to say, you know what, I changed my mind. I'd rather not do that.
Yeah.
Or at least saying, stop, can I have a minute?
Yeah. And I've had patients before that came in and they're like, I'm not going to get the Hep B or the vitamin K. I'm like, cool. We sign consents. And then, 2 hours in, they're like, do you hate me? But I think I do want to get those shots. I'm so sorry.
Care.
I'm changing my mind. I'm like, I don't care.
Right.
We go through paper at this hospital like it's candy. So I'll just go get the new consent. It's totally fine. We are totally fine with you asking questions, changing your mind, all that. We get it.
Yes.
What I don't want is for you to go home and then wish you had gotten the vitamin K. Yeah.
I should have done this. Yeah. Just say, we're very open. We're very easy. We're very flexible. Totally fine.
Yeah. Do you have any other good tips?
I think just being able to speak up for yourself or having an advocate. I think that's the power of doulas, and also really supportive partners, or your mom or mother-in-law or your sister, whoever it is. I know with COVID, it's less people in the room, but just letting us know, because we are not mind readers, right? And if we don't know what you want or where you're coming from, we can't help you to the best of our ability.
Yeah. And the hard thing is that, especially if you're going natural or whatever, or you're just tired, you may not have all the skills you would have had on a normal day, right?
Yes. Yeah. I hate sometimes asking questions to my laboring patients because I know that they can't really answer. I'm like, what's more comfortable to you? I don't know. And it's I get it, because one, you're uncomfortable anyways. And two, it's really hard to make decisions in that mind frame. So having someone who knows what you want and is there to support you and advocate for you is really important.
Yeah. In fact, my bonus tip is to even run through scenarios with your partner. I do this in my online prenatal class. We have a communication with your doctor, and I run through scenarios just with a friend about what a doctor could say and the words you could use to get that extra time or get informed consent so that they don't feel as weird and awkward. Because, if you were at Gap and you were like, well, I would like the informed consent on this sweatshirt. That would be awkward, right? But in the hospital, you're just like, sure, let me go over the risks, the benefits, and the alternatives.
Yeah, because a lot of time it'll be doctor come in, well, I'd like to break your water. And the patient's just kind of, okay, because they don't know.
Right.
And you can always say, okay, well, what is this going to do for me in terms of my labor?
Yeah.
Just ask the questions.
That's a great way.
And they should be able to explain it to you.
Or why.
Yes. Why?
And I'll tell you, why? Because that's when they're at the hospital.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So, and sometimes that's a good reason
to get back to in the office, and, they have stuff to do. And a lot of times it is based around their schedule. And, most of the time it's fine, the interventions that we do, but sometimes they're not the most appropriate. And sometimes your nurse will be like, hey, this doctor who's going to come in the morning likes to do this.
Yep.
And you don't have to go along with that, or you can ask questions about it if you want. I'm just letting you know that that's what this doctor likes to do.
Yep. That's what good nurses do. I'd always be like, FYI, at 9 a.m., he comes and breaks everybody's water. So if you're cool with that, I'm going to just put an amni hook here. And if you're not cool with that, I'm going to leave the amni hook outside the room so we can ask them more questions.
Correct. You're are you okay with that? Your nurse should be definitely setting subtle hints to the provider that maybe they should pause for a moment and ask more questions.
Yeah, it's tricky.
It is.
Just because healthcare communication is different than anywhere else. I think we have a anesthesiologist who would end every informed consent, or you could die. And of course, then we had patients that were backing out of the epidural, and I would be right. So I would prep them in advance. I was like, if you turned on your car, if you turned on your oven, maybe if you even turned on your sewing machine, and it gave you an informed consent, it would end in, and you could die.
And you could die.
Because
that is the risk of literally everything.
Yeah. Walking.
And legally they have to tell you. And it sounds like so much of the risk sounds so scary, but like the risk is so low, and like there's risk in everything. If you drink enough water, it's going to kill you.
Exactly.
But no one's like, don't drink water, it's going to kill you.
Yeah. And you can always say, you went through a lot of risks, or how frequent does any of that happen? Because sometimes they just have like a pattern. You could have an infection, you could have a backache, you could have, and they just go through it real quick because they're just used to saying it. And honestly, most people don't care.
Yeah. I had a great doctor yesterday. A patient had been, she was laboring, she got to complete, she was pushing and pushing, and like the baby was not budging. So she went over her options, and she's like, the risk of using a vacuum is this, and these are the risks, but the risks are about 1% of cases. And like that gives you an idea of like, yes, there's risk, but they're not that significant.
Yeah. Versus,
and it's helpful.
Versus,
likely. Your baby could bleed into its brain and like you could tear.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, how likely is that to happen? 1%. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. So communication is key, guys.
So important. So important.
Yeah. And keep talking with your partner while you're in there. We expect you guys to have conversations around us.
Yes.
We expect all that. You should be like, what do you think about this? What do you think? Because it's both of you. It's both your baby, and maybe they have input because they're not in pain and they're not so tired.
Correct. I had a great dad the other day who was like asking tons of questions, pulling us aside and being like, you said this, what does that mean? And it was, we love nurses love to talk. We love to talk. We love to explain things. So ask us the questions.
Yeah. As long as your partner's okay with it. Because sometimes they ask so many questions that the partner's like, I am so sorry. He is so inquisitive. And I was like, no, I love it. But
I love it. I don't mind.
I do think sometimes it bugs the pregnant person. So then I feel a little bit bad.
But
I'm like, I don't care. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much for coming on, Samantha. If you guys have questions about communication in labor, come find us over on Instagram. We'd love to chat more about it. And Samantha, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much. I had a great time.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, because the number one rule is everybody is so different and we literally have no idea what you want. So the more you can tell us what you want, the more we can tailor things to you. Because when a patient is completely closed off, hardly talks to us, it's just like they want me to read their mind, and I am not good at that. Just ask my husband. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode. The online prenatal class for couples has a whole bonus video where I use my husband and a friend, and we go through some scenarios about communicating with your healthcare team. So it just gives you some of the words you can use to do that. So I hope you guys will come join me in the course. And we have some fun episodes coming up. My friend Kayla from Baby Toddler Teacher is coming to talk about organizing your playroom, which is a great thing as we're getting into Christmas shopping time. So I cannot wait for her to come on. Even if you haven't had your baby or you're not even close, I think this is a great discussion just to talk about like what to expect to buy to play with your baby. I loved the conversation. And then after that, my friend Rachel is coming on to talk about positive C-sections, because we only hear the negative about those. So excited for those episodes. Stay tuned. Thanks so much for joining us on today's episode. The Pulling Curls podcast grows when you share us on social media or leave a review. If you do, please tag us so that we can share and send you a virtual hug, which frankly is my favorite kind of hugging. Until next time, we hope you have a tangle-free day.